The Last of Us Part 2 is one of the most controversial games that has ever been released. I mean, people legitimately got ran out of the industry just for trying to take part in it. But beyond all the hate, the love, the tattoos, the compassion, the threats towards the actors themselves, I think we can agree that The Last of Us is a game that definitely stirs up a lot of very passionate conversation. And what's kind of surprising is The Last of Us Part 2 is about to be remade. In fact, it's done. It's about to be released on the PlayStation 5, and I'm kind of curious as to what the heck is going on. So let's take a look at the leaks and discuss, are you going to buy it? Alright, let's get into it. Hi, I'm DreamcastGuy. Be sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's see if we can get this video to 2,000 likes in honor of Last of Us Part 2. Now, I do want to quickly say, I do not consider myself to be an outright hater of The Last of Us Part 2. It's just that I'm a much bigger fan of The Last of Us Part 1. I did enjoy The Last of Us 1 remake for what it was, even though it was just a graphical overhaul with no additional features. It sounds like Naughty Dog heard our unhappiness with The Last of Us Part 1 remake, though, because the biggest downside to it was that it didn't have extra dialogue, it didn't have extra combat, it didn't have extra little side paths. It was the exact same game. It sounds like Last of Us Part 2 remake is going to be a bigger project, but here we go. We're over on Twitter. Dom the Bomb actually does a lot of Last of Us content, and he is the one that I first saw tweet this out. This is a post over on LinkedIn where a guy talks about the fact that he spent the last almost 3 years working on this Last of Us Part 2 remaster. Responsible for overseeing the production of all outsourced environment art assets, weapons, interactive props for two iconic titles, The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered. Now, this seems surprising because, honestly, The Last of Us Part 2 only came out 4 years ago. I'm somebody that did do about 5 total playthroughs in order to find all the collectibles and lore and stuff like that. And as much as I don't like the story aspects of The Last of Us Part 2, I think we can easily agree that graphically it is still a masterpiece. Part of my confusion with this project right up front is the fact that Remaster kind of conveys that this is just taking the original game and sprucing it up, upscaling it, adding some better foliage, better lighting systems, but that's not what Part 2 needs. I mean, Last of Us Part 2, if anything, needs extra story chapters, extra bits to show us what's going on in this very dark world. So just making it look better is not enough. Now, a lot of people are basically just freaking out about this because what the heck? I'm glad people are happy. I only care about the state of factions right now. So a lot of people are talking about this because it is interesting that we were supposed to get a Last of Us multiplayer game. It's well known. It's been talked about heavily. Last of Us Factions, a standalone, free-to-play, existing online game. I do truly believe that these remasters of The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us Part 2 were not intended to be released on their own. I think this is a timeline mess-up where PlayStation is forcing them to release these on their own, even though they were supposed to be part of a bigger package. Now, that sounds negative. It sounds like I'm saying Sony is rushing stuff, but let me explain. The Last of Us Factions was originally going to be packaged together with The Last of Us Part 2. This is well known. They talked about themselves, but whenever they started working on The Last of Us Part 2's multiplayer, it was just so big and ambitious, they decided to spin it off into its own separate thing. And as that project grew, I think they got the idea, now this is my own tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, I think the original plan was to have The Last of Us multiplayer out before the TV show, so the TV show would come out and that would be huge and that would boost the player base. Then we'd get The Last of Us Part 1 remake, and that would have tie-in content. Buying The Last of Us Part 1 would give you shirts or gun skins and stuff that would then carry over to the game. You unlock stuff in one version of The Last of Us, and it unlocks it in the other version of The Last of Us. And then having the same thing in Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, same deal. Beat the game, level up, do all the side stuff, and then again, it gives you extra cosmetic content for The Last of Us Part 2 factions. Now that Factions 2 has yet to materialize, we still haven't seen a single screenshot or even a bit of gameplay, and now from the new leaks that I've been covering, it sounds like it may be canceled outright. It to me is very bizarre that the next game we're getting from freaking Naughty Dog is not The Last of Us Part 3, it's not Jak and Daxter, it's not anything that people have been talking about like, I don't know, Uncharted 5. It's another remaster. I decided to do this poll, and I must admit, I'm quite shocked by the negativity of it. The rumor is we're getting a Last of Us Part 2 remaster. Will you buy it again? Yes is at 20%. No is at almost 67%. And a lot of people are basically saying, I didn't like the game, but if it comes to Steam and it's well done, I'll probably buy it so I can play it on Steam Deck. I'll buy it for a physical PS5 disc, but otherwise, no way. It does not need to be remastered. This is kind of the sentiment that I'm in, honestly, which is that graphically, the game still looks perfect. They need to do more than just make it look better. And thankfully, it does sound like that is the case. There was this leak a couple months ago that I talked about, which is that The Last of Us Part 2 Remaster already had some details leaked. The composer of the game itself said that apparently there's going to be new stuff. He was doing an interview in Spanish, and he said you're going to be able to walk around in Jackson, the big town at the beginning of the game. You'll find him, and you can request songs for him to play. Now, this sounds minor on the surface, but to me, this does signal a good sign because it conveys the fact that Naughty Dog is doing additional content for The Last of Us Part 2 Remaster. Not just a fresh coat of paint, not just boosting the resolution. They're making stuff that did not exist in the original version in this. I'm still very much in an odd spot. I will admit that if I was not a YouTuber, if I didn't review games as my job, I don't think I'd play this. I don't think I'd buy this. Just being brutally honest here. I recently did a bunch more playthroughs of Last of Us Part 2. I did a big video called Was I Wrong to Hate Last of Us Part 2, where I did an ultra deep dive analysis of it. It's still fresh in my mind. If this doesn't have some very big additional content to change the nature of it, to expand on it, give me more chapters as Abby or an extra epilogue or something, some extra context to help that story feel a bit more fleshed out. If this has a lot of new stuff, I might buy it. But if this is a $70 game with a couple extra bells and whistles, to me, it's just not worth it. But what do you guys think? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you are excited for The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, tell me about it. Explain to me, because I am genuinely curious. You guys rock. Thank you for watching. If you could give this video a big old thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. And please keep dreaming. Oh man, am I going to replay The Last of Us for like the 50th time? I kind of want to. God, I love The Last of Us so freaking much. The first one to be clear. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.